Ladies and gentlemen, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, bonjour messieurs, dames, cher Père Charbel, willkommen chez nous à Orient Institut, Beirut. Before starting our session, let me briefly introduce myself and say some words about the place where you are right now. My name is Thomas Wirks and I'm since May this year Deputy Director of OIB. As many of you, our guests today, may be for the first time at this place, let me say a few words about our Institute's history. Orient Institut Beirut was founded in 1961 by the German Society for Oriental Studies. For this reason, we could celebrate our 60th anniversary with a jubilee party and academic workshops 2 weeks ago. Orient Institut Beirut is a completely independent research institute choosing its research topics freely. It conducts interdisciplinary research on the Arab world, mainly the region of West Asia and North Africa. Next to history, anthropology, Arab and Islamic studies, also social and political sciences play a role in the Institute research profile, which is currently shaped by the framework of relations. The Institute has always benefited from the advantages of Lebanon's unique position as an intellectual center in the Arab world. Now the country and the landscape of its academic institution is in a crisis. For sure, education will play a role in the very much hoped process of recovering from it. So today's evening we will deal with an issue of great importance for Lebanon, its political and economic future, and of course for its people. I am excited about what we are getting to hear from the Rector of Notre-Dame de Jamhour, Charbel Batour, membre de Société de Jésuits, about the history of the college. Because it is an educational institution rich in tradition in Lebanon, which we will visit virtually today. After giving an insight in the history and the present situation of Jamhour, Père Charbel will also share some of his ideas on the future of education in Lebanon. Et bien sûr, une conférence sur Jamhour aurait pu avoir lieu en français et beaucoup s'attendaient à ce qu'elle soit donnée dans cette langue. Néanmoins, le pays et l'OIB ont évolué ces dernières années de telle sorte qu'un public, même lors d'un événement académique, a une origine plutôt internationale. Aujourd'hui, nous aimerions que ceux qui sont venus ici de nombreuses régions du monde en sachant plus sur l'institution. So having said that international background of the audience led us to the decision to have the event in English, I would like to introduce to you our speaker. Charbel Batour, Societas Jesu, is the Rector of Collège Notre-Dame de Jamhour. Born in Beirut, 1968, he joined the Society of Jesus in 1988. He studied philosophy and theology in Beirut, Paris, and Boston, and obtained his PhD in Christian ethics from Boston College. His doctoral dissertation was published under the title, How Can Lacan and Vaz Inform a Christian Understanding of Desire? The signifié of desire as a new ground for grace. Besides his work at Collège Notre-Dame de Jamhour, he was also lecturing at Université Saint-Joseph in Beirut for many years. Merci pour être venu ici et maintenant la parole est à vous.
Well, first of all, I am thrilled. I am very happy to be in this very interesting place. It's my first visit to this institute, and I am impressed by the decor, first of all. Mr. Wurst, thanks for the invitation. We had a meeting in Jamhour. We prepared the talk before. We spoke over the phone. We had some email exchange. And I have to tell you the truth, that I'm a little bit surprised by the topic. I couldn't imagine that an institute like yours is interested in the history and in the present of a school like Jamhour. What is the link? Maybe I will discover it. Because we are not a university, and we are one among many Catholic schools, private schools in Lebanon, and as you may know, that the schools in Lebanon are private. The main, I would say, weight of the schooling in Lebanon rely on private schools. So what I would like to share with you tonight, it's really very simple. I would like to take my time to talk about the history in general about Jesuit education, in order to put Jamhour in its context, in its real context. I will talk about the present time and the challenges of the present time, and this is not very difficult for you to imagine if you live in Lebanon. I would like to finish by talking about some of our projects, and if you'd like, we can discuss topics related to the future of education and the meaning of education in a country like Lebanon. So in the beginning, I would like to situate the history of the school in a broader history of education for the Jesuits, actually. When people hear about the Jesuits, they tend to think that this order, it's a religious order, I suppose that you know about them, it's a Catholic religious order. They tend to think that Jesuits do only education. It means school, universities, and if you have the time, I would give you some information. For example, you can check a site, Educate Magic, its name. You can see the network of Jesuit schools and Jesuit universities, which actually is the biggest in the world. I am not aware of any network as big as the Jesuit network. At any rate, you know, the Jesuits is a Catholic order that was founded by a Spanish, a Basque man. His name was Ignatius of Loyola. He was born in 1491. This man, who was a soldier, very courageous soldier, will do a major conversion in his life. And at one point, he will start a spiritual journey, which is very special in his time. What's important about the spiritual journey, and this is why I'm talking about it, is that this man will develop a pedagogy, a way of praying, which is unique in the history of the Catholic Church. This is key to understand all what I will be saying. So the whole project of the Jesuits and education really is related to a personal, spiritual experience of one man, Ignatius of Loyola. Without really being aware of his journey, he will start to pray in a particular way, and he will start to write this way, and he will start to teach this way, and this is what would give, maybe you've heard about the spiritual exercise. What's difficult about this very little book, it's not a book to be read, it's a book to be tried. You have to do it in order to understand what is about. Why it is important for our topic? Because it will shape the whole history of the religious order until today. So Ignatius of Loyola, very early in his life, started this spiritual journey, and without realizing, started to discover education I would say in a very unconscious way. He wasn't really aware of what he was doing. He thought that his journey is about spiritual things, about helping, as we say in the language of this time, helping souls, being the soldier of the Catholic Church, defending the Pope. You know, very probably you know that the Jesuits are known to be the soldiers of the Pope, and especially at one point against the Protestants, because the enemy at that time of the Catholic Church were the Protestants in Europe. So Ignatius, when he started his spiritual journey, he was really thinking about spiritual things. He has never ever thought about any school, about any university. This is very new to him. And this is really something that he will discover and he will develop during his life, late in his life, I would say. Ignatius of Loyola, he did the spiritual exercises he gave the spiritual exercises. And at one point, after a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, because he went to Jerusalem in order to follow, according to him, Christ, on his way back to Europe, he realized that it's very important for him to study. So he went to study, really. He was more than 32, probably 33 years old. He went to study Latin with little kids in the school. So he felt the desire to study again. This soldier, who was of a noble family, discovered that it's very important for him to study again, in order, of course, to study theology and in order to eventually become a priest. After studying, he met some men in Paris. He was studying in Paris at the university. He met some men, and little by little, they made a group of men and started to think about being together. And not far, it means in 1540, they have the recognition of the Pope to constitute this order that we called the Society of Jesus, or la Compagnie de Jésus in French, or الرهبنة اليسوعية في العربي. The date that this religious order started really is 1540. Why am I insisting on this date? You will see the closeness to us. In 1540, the Jesuits started. In 1553, they thought about opening a house in Beirut. 13 years after the foundation of the Jesuits, they thought about opening a house in Beirut in order to send missions to Asia. The project actually failed, but for Ignatius de Loyola, the question of being in Orient, the question of being among the Turks, was a very important question. First of all, he is Spaniard. He is from the Basque country. And if you know a little bit the history of Spain, you may think about the Reconquista, you may think about the whole question of Islam in Spain. So in 1452, actually, it was the end of Islam, basically, in Spain. So 1 year only after his birth. And you have a major historical event, actually, that happened on the other side, which was in Vienna. You know that the Ottoman Empire was around Vienna, was not far from Vienna. And this event impacted the whole Catholic world. So they felt threatened by the Ottoman Empire. This is why Ignatius of Loyola very early thought about sending Jesuits to our region. For our region, what was important for them, it's not really Protestant, because we had no Protestant here. The question Protestant, Catholic, it was a European question. It wasn't really a question related to the Middle East or to Lebanon, never, late in the 19th century. But I'm talking about 16th century, it wasn't really a very important topic. What was important is the following. When the Jesuits thought about sending some Jesuits to our region, namely to Lebanon, Syria, and Egypt, they discovered that there you had the Oriental churches. It means the Maronite, it means the Byzantine, what we call Rome in Lebanon, it means the Syriac. They discovered these churches, and the major question was, are these Christians Catholic? Are they according to the law and to the mindset of the Catholic? This was a major question. So the Maronite, as you may know, they always pretended to be very close to Rome and very Catholic. So in order to make the Maronite more Catholic, if you like, the Jesuits was asked by the Pope to found a college in Rome for the Jesuit. And this is for the history of Lebanon and for the history of our school is key. 1584, the Jesuits opened the Maronite School of Rome, College of Rome, and it was the beginning really for us of the whole schooling system in this country. So one of my theses in my talk is that this school in 1544 is really the matrix of all the system till Jamhour. It's the same spirit. In the school, mainly those who were trained were priests. So some Lebanese young men were sent to Rome in order to be trained as a priest. Some of them remained in Europe, and many of them has very important, I would say, positions, some in France, some in Italy, some in Spain, and many of them were sent back where? To Lebanon. To do what? To work in parishes. And you can imagine the impact of such an education. I'm talking about Italy. Italy at that time, it was really the center and the capital of all the culture of the world. When you live in Italy in the 16th and in the 17th century, it was something before any other, I would say, city in Europe. Rome was something very important. So those people sent back to Lebanon had a great impact on the whole community, namely the Maronite, but little by little, they had impact on Lebanon. Of course, I'm talking about the 17th century, we had no Lebanon. We had Mount Lebanon. In this mountain, you had communities there, Druze, Maronite, Sunni, Shia, but the country itself, it didn't exist. So when they came, when those students of Rome returned back to Lebanon, they started to teach. We didn't really have official schools or colleges. It didn't exist. There is one exception, only, I don't know if you know, Collège Saint-Joseph in Antura. It was for Jesuits. And Jesuits there started what we call a seminary. It means a place where we train a priest around 1750. It was a short time for this seminary. It didn't last a lot, but they started activities of teaching in all the area. And when I'm talking about teaching at that time, it was something between catechism and teaching. So in order to teach catechism, you have to teach some grammar, you have to teach some languages, you have to teach some history. It was a mixture. At any rate, in 1773, the Pope suppressed the Society of Jesus. This is a very important date. The Jesuits in Lebanon, in the Mount of Lebanon, they simply disappeared. They gave their school, their institutions to the Lazarists, and between 1773 and 1831, the Jesuits were absent from this country. In 1833, a patriarch, his name, Patriarch Mazloum, he was a bishop, Mazloum, of the Melkite, asked the Pope again to have the Jesuit in order to run a seminar in Ain Tres. I don't know if you know where is Ain Tres, in the region of the Shuf. In Ain Tres, Jesuits were called in 1833 in order to, again, to open a sort of school, a seminary there. It didn't work, because when they came to Lebanon, they didn't find any finished seminary. At that time, the Maronite community asked the Jesuit to open another seminary, and this is directly related to us. It was in Ghazir. You are aware where Ghazir is. It's in the north of Beirut, up the hill in Juliet. There, in a castle owned by the Shah, they will start the seminary of Ghazir, which is directly the school that was at the origin of Collège Notre-Dame de Jamhour and of St. Joseph University. Both institutions actually started in Ghazir, and again, it's the same story. They started the school as a seminary, it means concerned with religious stuff, and little by little, it will become really completely different. In 1875, the Jesuits moved the school and the university from Ghazir to Beirut. In the beginning, St. Joseph University and what we call today Jamhour, it was the same entity, the same thing. In 1953, we went up this hill. We are in Batour right now. The main reason, I was today reading a little bit about the history of the school. The main reason about moving the school actually from Beirut to Batour, at the time people were really amazed. Why are the Jesuits moving their schools up to this place which is in the middle of nowhere? People did not understand. I'm talking about in about 1945 when they bought the land. The reason that we kept is the following. Beirut is becoming very noisy. it's not good for the school. So Jesuits thought about moving the school because of noise, and effectively, if you know where is now St. Joseph, the old St. Joseph University, it was, and it is right now, a very busy area. Before these 2 years, actually, it was very, very busy and very noisy. Maybe we have somebody who lives there, he can tell us about the noise there. At any rate, 1953, the school moved to Baghdad. The school in Baghdad has, I would say, had glorious times. It was the glorious times of Lebanon. I'm talking about the 50s, I'm talking about the time of Sharon Shab, which is considered for the history of Lebanon as probably the most important phase of the modern Lebanese state. It was a boarding school and a day school, both. And it was conceived as a school for 800 students only. It was for 800 students. Today we have in Baghdad only 3,200, just to give you the scope of the development of the school. Many known figures came from Jamhour. I will try to tell you some names, just to give you an idea. We have from Jamhour, I'm talking about the new Jamhour. It means the school of 1953 until today. We have Patriarch, for example, Patriarch Sfair was from Jamhour. Patriarch, the present Marnay, Patriarch Charbel, presidents of the Republic. After the independence, Charbel Hero, Bashir Jumayel, and Amin Jumayel, countless ministers and deputies, writers, important writers, Amin Malouf, who is now in l'Académie Française, which is a first time in our history, in the history of Lebanon. He did his study in Jamhour. Salah Statihi, the famous poet. Composers, one may be surprised by the name of Ziyad al-Rahbani. Ziyad al-Rahbani did his studies in Jamhour. And just for the little story, the famous song, Ala Hadir al-Bosta, was composed because he was in one of our school buses and he was bothered by this very slow buses going up the hill to Baghdad. Somebody like Gabriel Yared, probably you heard about him, a major musician for movies in Hollywood. Businessmen like Carlos Ghosn, he became famous recently because of his endeavor in Japan. Selim Bassoul, Ray Delbani, I can name many people. Bankers, well, I have to say this with some hesitation. Riyad Salami did his studies in Jamhour. The list is really very long. So we have the reputation of being the school of elite. We can discuss this because in our perspective, Jamhour is not really a school for elite society. It's not a question of having, as some people would tend to think, having rich people or important people. It's a school where everybody is and lives and is happy. So when you go to Jamhour, you will find the son or the daughter of the driver next to the son or the daughter of a minister or even of the president of the republic. So the social mixity for us is key in our understanding of education. I'm going fast because I'm realizing that I wrote a lot. At any rate, let us speak about a little bit about today, because today it's something very close to you and it says something about the school. The challenges are multiple in schools in Lebanon in general. It's not only in Jamhour, but we started a major crisis in the whole sector of schooling in Lebanon with the famous law of 2017, the law 146, which was the law of the increase of salaries. You've heard about it probably. سلسلة الرتب والرواتب, which was a major, I would say, mistake, not only regarding the schools in Lebanon, but regarding the whole Lebanese economy. And one of the reasons of the present situation in the country is such a law. Why am I saying this? I will describe it in a very easy way. The state or the government decided to increase the salaries for the les fonctionnaires, public service. Good idea. The state has the right to do it. They thought that they will increase taxes on people in order to pay this increase, the logic is good. But they did the same thing with private schools without asking the schools where they will get the money from. So I give you the example of Jamhour. In Jamhour, when we did the calculation of such increase, it represented in 2017 43.4, something like that. And at that time, I was among very rare people to say publicly, even Apple Macintosh is not able to increase the salaries of its employees in such a proportion. Impossible. So the schools really in Lebanon, I said it, are in danger. At that time, nobody understood, and I was somehow criticized. How come Father Charbel is saying that the schools are in problem, the schools in Lebanon are great, the system is great, we have always had a good schooling system, and in fact it didn't last, because starting from 2019, we started to see the effect of such a law on the whole sector. So 2019, the series of crises for the school, for Jamhour, but for the whole schooling system in Lebanon started. I will not talk about the politics, but you know what happens in October 17. I will not talk about the banking system, the money system, because almost today it doesn't exist. It means it's a virtual system. Today, the money of the Lebanese public exists only on paper. It's a virtual reality, it's not a reality. In Jamhour, in a particular way, in 2019, we had a major storm. This storm it means some months after October 17. It was in March 12th. On March 12th, we lost like 450 trees on this hill. It was really a disaster for us. And it culminated with, of course, the blast of Beirut. The blast of Beirut, August 4, was something beyond words. Why I'm talking about the blast? Because we talked about this campus in Baghdad, but we have another campus in Beirut that we call Collège Saint-Grégoire, which is it's 750 meters far away from the seaport. So the whole campus was devastated by the explosion. So the challenges are really multiple: political, storm, economy, banking, blast, and of course the COVID-19. This was really the crowning of the whole series of crises. COVID-19, but this was the crisis of the whole world. It's not crisis of Jamhour or Lebanon. The whole world suffered, and still, from COVID-19. How are we dealing today with these challenges? The blast of Beirut was a disaster for all the Lebanese, especially the Lebanese in Beirut. Our response was very quick. Even on August 5 in the morning, we started to clean the school. And we declared the school will be better than before. It's something that was very daring, but today, if you go to this region of Ashrafiyya, it's just next to the Lebanese hospital, Mustashfa Jaitawi, you will see even the street became better than before. So we rebuild, we renovate, and today we have a better school than before August 4. Shortage in electricity. This is a common topic in the country. So in order to deal with the question of shortage, and this is something that we planned in 2016, as you may see here, we have all these solar panels. It's a big project. We transformed our roofs mainly into a factory. We have a factory of electricity in order to deal with the crisis. Something that helped us a lot to reduce the fees of the electricity. As you may know, today the diesel is very, very expensive, especially if you see the rate between dollar and Lebanese pound. We were able even to provide gas in the middle of the crisis of gas. September, October, you still recall, there was no gas in the country. We had a station which was built really for some school buses in the school. We transformed it into a real gas station, and we used it, and mainly we didn't really suffer from this crisis. We even cleaned the forest after the storm, and we planted, instead of 450, we planted 1,200 trees. And nowadays we are developing a whole plan for all the green areas, because I'm talking about this hill, which is more than 233,000 square meters. It's a huge hill comparing to Lebanon. So we have a whole project for all our forests and the green spaces. With the agreement of the parents, we try to increase the salaries a little bit of our faculties and employees. You know, it's not easy today. If you compare how much the Lebanese people lost in their salaries, it's something beyond conception. Just to give you a hint, the average salary in a school like Jamhour, and it's not the only school in this situation, was around $2,000 a month, per month. Today, the same salaries dropped to $120. How can we live after living with $2,000 per month? How can we live with $120? You see the depth of the crisis. So this is why we started a major fundraising campaign almost around the world, but in Lebanon as well. So because the school fees are not any longer enough to run a school, and this problem will be a major problem starting from the end of the year. The whole system of schooling in Lebanon is in danger. Why? Because who pay the school? The parents. Where do the parents work? In Lebanon. What kind of currency they have? Lebanese pound. Lebanese pound today cannot buy diesel, cannot buy the books, cannot buy the paper, cannot buy printers. It's really a very serious problem. This is why, in order to deal with the crisis, with the financial crisis, we started a major fundraising campaign around the world. Mainly, you know, the place of fundraising is the United States, but not only in the States. In France, in Switzerland, and on the other side in the Gulf countries, in Saudi Arabia, in Emirates in general, but especially in Dubai, we are asking everybody if he or she can help us to come and join our effort. And this is how we develop a sort of bonuses for our employees and our faculty with their salaries in order to sustain them a little bit. And I'm insisting on this a little bit. Why? Because this is a transient solution. This is a solution for some months from now, but it's not a solution in the long run. This is why I would like to say that if I'm talking about Jamhour and I'm giving you some numbers, it's important to know that Jamhour is considered today as one of the best schools financially in the country, except probably 2 or 3 schools which are originally very rich, like IC, ACS, but I'm talking in general. Jamhour is considered as a stable institution. Even a stable institution like Jamhour is today in danger. Are we going to shut our doors? No, but we will have in the near future to deal with a lot of challenges. I would like to finish not with, I would say, negative news about the school and the schooling system. Let me tell you what we are doing despite the situation. Today we started a fundraising for supporting and sustaining our faculty. But starting from 2016, we started to build, to found actually, something which is not very common in a French school, what we call an endowment fund. We started an endowment fund in the way of the American universities and American schools because we wanted to protect and to develop the school. So the project continues. The problem is that the money that we got starting from 2016 are in Lebanese banks. It means that today they are like nothing. And I'm talking not about some hundreds of thousands, I'm talking about millions. They are today like nothing. Probably we lost all of them, but we will continue this effort in order to secure somehow the future of the institution. We are on our way to found an Academy of Technology and Robotics. This is a very important project for us. Our students, since now more than 15 years, got a lot of prizes around the world. They are very gifted when it comes to computer, robotics, artificial intelligence. We won a lot of prizes in Korea, in Kuwait, in Jordan, in Germany. Actually, our students, I think three in a row, they got the best prize in Germany. This is why we thought seriously about founding an institution, an academy for robotics and artificial intelligence. We were about to start officially the academy, and the events of 2019 came up, and somehow it slowed a little bit the project. Still, we are in a relationship, we developed a relationship with DigiPen Institute in Seattle in the United States. This is one of the aspects of the project in order to train our students to this whole new, I would say, education, which will be key in the future. So, in many universities around the world, you have artificial intelligence and robotics, but rare are the institutions that thought about the little kids. I can tell you that a student in Jamhour, 12 years old students, is able to do fantastic things. You will be amazed at when you see the capacity of those little kids who were really in the last years very creative. We are still developing our international network. This is something new for a Francophone school, just to give you an idea. Mainly the students of Jamhour, I would say in the 19th and even in 2020 and in 2010, they thought about France. They used to go to France. Very little students, 2, 3, maybe a year, would go to the United States. Today, the situation has changed completely. Many students are going to the UK, to Spain, to Switzerland, to Canada, to the United States, and unfortunately, since 2019, more than half of our students in high school are going abroad. And I'm talking, half of the students, I'm talking about more than 140 students going abroad every single year. I don't know, this year probably all of them will leave the country. But this is important. Some people would look at this reality. Oh, your school are sending all their students abroad. Yes, because we are giving them the tools in order to live well elsewhere. But eventually they will come back to the country and they will contribute to the, I would say, resurrection of the country. Let's hope. We are planning many projects of development in the school, but this is related a little bit to the economy of the country. So we are waiting a little bit to see where the economy in the country is going in order to execute some plans, plenty of plans related to arts, related to music, related to sports. You may know that Jamhour is very famous in this country in sports. When you see people running in the marathon of Beirut, a big crowd of students, be sure that those are the students of Jamhour. It's a very sporty, I would say, school. I will stop here. I had a lot of things to say. It's not important. What may be important now, if you'd like, we can dialogue around the history of the school, if you'd like, and around the present time. Thank you.
For this interesting and amazing talk about the history, and also rooting it in the history of the Jesuits, the Jesuit order, and then in the history of the country, and also giving us an outlook to the present situation and the challenges, many challenges you mentioned, and you also gave us some examples how you are dealing with it, power plant on the roof, or other activities fostering the trees around the school. But before asking the audience, maybe I would like to ask one question, because I have a bit the idea you promised something at the beginning and you gave us some idea about it, but maybe you can ask you about it. Because when you started the talk with the Jesuit and with Ignatius from the Loyola and this spiritual experience, you said there is a special idea behind it. Yeah? And of course then afterwards, giving the current situation, we talk about formation process, activities, challenges, and good education to be well aware of job opportunities abroad and getting it, or facing current political problems also. But maybe you could a bit more elaborate on this spiritual experience of Ignatius and how it is related to your curriculum, what you're doing, what also gives a certain spirit to the place. Yeah?
Okay. So I was saying in the beginning that the experience of the spiritual exercise, either done or given to others, it's a key experience that impacted the whole history of the Jesuits. Why I'm saying that? Because when the founder of the Jesuits did this, he wasn't aware that he was already in education. So for the first Jesuits, when they started their mission, they have never ever thought about opening school, for example, or universities. Never. So they came to education in a way by chance. They found themselves in the middle of an educational endeavor, and at the death of Ignatius of Loyola, I'm talking about 1556, education basically was half of the work of the Jesuits around the world. So in the beginning they want to save souls, they want to fight Protestant, they want to go to the land of Islam, but in fact the real vocation, or part of their vocation, was really a pedagogical mission and an educational mission. So why I am saying that this is important for us, because it's the same spirit. I didn't develop this because I would take some time. Well, for example, I give you the example of Ghazir. I'm talking about 1843. The Jesuits came to Ghazir in order to educate or to train the priests, the Maronite priests and other priests. When the people of Ghazir saw the good education of the young priests or the seminarians, they started to ask the Jesuits, please, can I put my boy with your young Jesuits? May I send my boy to your school? And this is how Jamhour started, and this is really astonishing, because when the Jesuits came after their suppression to the Middle East, they didn't think about opening schools. But people around the Jesuits somehow pushed the Jesuit to develop their spiritual way and their training as a priest into, I would say, lay schools. Because after all, don't you ever think that in Jamhour or in our schools around the world, which are, I'm talking about more than 800 colleges around the world, we are not spending our time talking about religious issues and church issues at all. That means we are real schools and real academies. So this is what I wanted to say, that the spiritual grounding of the Society of the Jesus impacted the whole system, because Jesuits did not realize that what they were doing since the beginning was education. So I don't know if I explained enough this, but because I can give many historical detail about the same phenomenon happened in Spain, in Italy, especially in Italy, when the Jesuits started to open the colleges for priests. People around the Jesuits asked them to educate their children. And this is how the school, you know, the first Jesuit school in the world, the most known, is the school of Messina in 1548. This is how it started, exactly like Ghazir and Jamhour, the same phenomenon. In the beginning, it was a school to train priests, and little by little people asked the Jesuits to take their children to educate them, and this is how they developed it into a regular school.
Yes, thank you so much for this clarification and this additional background.
Sorry, if you'd like, I didn't give academic reference, but you have one of the book. If by any chance you are interested in such a history, there is an American historian, John O'Malley. He wrote a very important book. Its name is The First Jesuits You have a chapter on the education, the Jesuit education. It's fantastic. It explains this whole process around the world.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's also your chance to ask questions to our speakers. So please, Jakub.
Forgive me for a slightly provocative question.
Go ahead.
But in Lebanon, both the churches and the educational institutions bear a significant amount of responsibility for building and sustaining the sectarian system and also the existing system of political parties. So my question is, are you as an institution aware of this danger, and are you taking any steps to make sure that your institution does not perpetuate the negative effects of this system that exists in Lebanon?
In your question, there are many things. I think there is political statements, many political statements, and probably some judgment regarding institutions. I don't know if you are talking exactly about Jamhour or you're talking about the schooling system in Lebanon. Yes, of course, all the schools in Lebanon has somehow a religious, I would say, label. All the schools, all the private schools have a religious label. Having a religious label is one thing. Developing a sectarian mindset, I would say it's a different thing. I can be in a Jesuit school or in an Orthodox school or even in a Sunni school or in a Shia school, but developing probably the openness to others and developing something different than what you were describing. Did we do this mistake in the past? Maybe. So I'm not saying that we are not responsible for in a way for this mindset, but this mindset that you are pointing to is more the mindset of the whole country. And if you'd like to talk more about the sectarian mindset, which that you are calling a mistake, maybe. Calling it a mistake, it's a diagnostic. You are describing the problem. But the reasons of such a mistake would lead us very far because it's related to our history. I would say it's related to the fear that is the cement of this country. So if you look at the sectarian reality in Lebanon, you would say that this is a very old-fashioned way, it did not build a country, look what's happening now. All of this is true. But what is true as well, that the history of these little communities in this part of the globe is a very tricky history. And I would tend to say it's a history of fear. And it's when you are afraid, you are suspecting everybody. When you are suspecting everybody, it's very difficult really to build something, I would say, sustainable. The history of Lebanon, one day I would like to really develop this idea. It's the history of fear, and when you are afraid, you become violent. So if you are pointing, because in what you were saying, you were pointing to the violence of the community. And I heard the stories of the Lebanese war. I heard the inhumane way of treating each other. Yes, all of this is true. But I think the problem, goes beyond the schooling system. To what extent the schooling system is fostering this mindset? This is, I think, a very good question. And it's like an examen of conscience. We have to ask it every day. But if you'd like, we can discuss a specific thing. If you'd like, we can discuss something specific about what the school are doing, if you'd like. Yes?
Maybe suggest or just a follow-up. First of all, thank you very much. So we always hear about the discussion about the history textbooks and the efforts to develop a history textbook for Lebanon. So maybe just as a concrete example, like how do you as a school deal with that? Like how do you teach history at school?
May I tell you something? You're not Lebanese, I suppose.
No.
You are not. When it comes to history in this country, we live in a continuing schizophrenia. And this schizophrenia basically is rooted in a sort of denial of saying the truth to each other. I will develop. If you ask a Sunni, for example, about what happened in Lebanon, I will not go far, not beyond 69, 75. How did the Lebanese war started in Lebanon? Listen to a Sunni, you will hear a story. You listen to a Druze, you will hear a different story. Listen to a Maronite, something different. Even an Orthodox, something different. How can we deal with such a reality in a schooling system which pretends to be somehow neutral? How? In fact, at present we are not dealing with it. If you come to a school like Jamhour, we speak about the history of Lebanon probably till the constitution of Israel. I would say the independence. Beyond the independence, you don't have a great deal. And what happened in Lebanon during the war, 75, 90, no word, it depends on each professor. What happened between 90 and today, no word, it depends on the political point of view of the teachers, and there is nothing. Is the ideal of the history in the school is to have one book, as many Lebanese actually pretend. I don't agree with this way of thinking. If you want a real history in Lebanon, you have to be able to present all the point of views regarding our own history and leave each person make his own or her own idea. It's impossible to have a unified history of Lebanon because history is like the Lebanese community. It's so separate.
Thank you very much, Father Charbel, for this important lecture, very useful. I would like to point the following. The first step for having in Lebanon a high literacy was not after the foundation of in 1644 by Ignatius de Loyola or the Jesuits in the first school. It was 60 years earlier, in 1584, with the foundation of the Maronite school in Rome. Maybe in 1644 it will be the second. Now concerning Notre-Dame de Jamhour.
Sorry, if I would interrupt you. I spoke about the Maronite College, and this is the whole theory. I'm presenting a thesis that this school of 1584 is really the matrix of all the schooling system. This is something that can be discussed, but I don't know if history is your thinking.
Yes. No, the second thing I would like to point also concerning Jamhour. Yes, Jamhour is for the elite, if you want. Unfortunately, it's for the elite if we want or if we don't, like you are trying to say, because Jamhour was always very expensive and it has always an international label. I remember in '58 when we came from the north, my parents wants me to go to Jamhour because it was the best college in all Lebanon.
Yes.
And we lived here around 50 meters away
Here in Beirut?
in Zotakel block.
Okay.
Yes, we had our house over here.
Okay.
I remember my father bought the building for 20,000 Lebanese pounds, and he used to pay 3,000 yearly in Jamhour.
Yes.
So it was for the elite and it was very expensive.
Yes.
Last, concerning unfortunately, the problem of the schools in Lebanon and especially in Jamhour, it's not the increment for the teachers. It was because unfortunately, we have in Lebanon thieves which are governing Lebanon.
Let me try to answer the second. For the first part, we agree the Maronite College in Rome was the matrix of all the system. This is something that we can develop in detail. Second, regarding the school fees, I can give you numbers. I don't know actual time. What was the situation? I know the institution I am responsible today of. When you speak about Jamhour, you speak probably about major schools in Lebanon, like IC, ACS, Louise Wegman, Nazareth, and the lycée, the French lycée. When you compare the school fees today of this school and of Jamhour, I can assure you that we are the cheapest.
No, yes, it's different now.
Yes, but because we made a lot of
Talking
effort.
about
And
50s
there
and
is,
60s.
yes, but there is something that I haven't developed, and maybe it can be of some interest. We have a very strong system of solidarity within the institution. So since decades, we've been giving a lot of scholarships in Jamhour. And the parents, they are helping other parents in order to have their children. We have a very strong social, I would say, a tool and social help within the institution. I haven't developed this aspect because I don't have time and it's not the issue. But if you're interested, I can give you numbers, which is really amazing for a school in Lebanon to be able, because I repeat, I don't know in Germany what's the situation, but I can give you the example of France. If you go to a private school in France today, let's say a Catholic school, everything is paid by the state. Parents would pay really something, you can send to your children to a very good school in Paris, you pay 1,500 euros. Why? Because you have a state, the French state, which is a strong state, that covers the majority of the fees of the school because the state believes in the importance of education. When you come to Lebanon, parents have to pay everything, starting from the pen till the bus, till the everything. So this is why private schools in Lebanon, despite what people may say, they are doing really a huge effort in order to continue. Some of them may be doing some business. I'm not responsible for the others, but this is something I repeat all over. I'm ready, if you'd like, to show you our numbers and to show you the reality of the school, and you will be amazed how the school is run. And we are keeping our belief in the system, and this is why we are fighting. I consider myself today in Lebanon, I am one of the fighters of the Lebanese educational system. Third, we can discuss politics, but it's not my field. What I would like to tell you one thing, I don't agree with you on the question of the thieves and on the question of the political responsibles. It's a way to disresponsabilize ourselves. When you say in Lebanese, henni عملوا, henni, it's a way for Lebanese people to escape their responsibility. I am responsible because I voted for them. And I will be responsible very soon because I probably will vote for the same people. So this discourse about the political thieves or our leaders are very bad, this is our responsibility. It's not the responsibility of others. And this is part of our education. Do you want to change the country today? You have to be responsible today for your country. Don't throw the responsibility on others. Assume the responsibility today where you are. Okay, but we can discuss it for hours. I can give you some recent examples about what happened in the country to show you that this discourse is not really productive. It's counterproductive because you throw the responsibility on others and nobody does anything. As what's going on right now.
Yeah, according to your question, in Germany it's mainly the same like in France.
Like
so
France.
Education is paid by the state, and then you get all facilities by the state. Yeah. And also the background is the same, that the state is thinking that education is very useful, but essential for the next generation. So
It's the best investment
investment.
for these countries, actually. Yeah. Yes.
Just a quick question about the setup of the students now.
Yeah.
So can you give us a small breakdown of sort of confessions and
Yes.
exactly that side of what the school is made up of and
Yes.
the teachers are made up of?
Yes. This is why I have to go back a little bit to the history. Let me say quickly that the Jesuit schools in Lebanon, we have 5. I didn't talk about the other schools in the Bekaa Valley. Wherever the schools are defines the community. I will explain. Jamhour originally was in Ashrafiyya. The majority of the people where Jamhour was were Christians. The alumni, the whole alumni, the majority of them are Christians. Before the war, the non-Christian in Jamhour were around 10%. Today, we are around 6%, but it's the direct consequence of the war because, as you know, that the Lebanese are still living in a sort of ghettos, despite all the discourse of living in one country and everybody loves everybody and we die to live with Muslims, with all this discourse which is completely really unrealistic. In fact, people are still living in some areas together. Jamhour, which was in Ashrafi, has the majority of the students, the majority, I'm talking about 93% of its students Christians. When you go to the Bekaa Valley, we have 3 schools there. We have, right now, I think we are not far from 72% of our students are Muslims. Why? Because in the Bekaa Valley, in Shtura, Ta'labaya, and Jdita, the Muslim community is very important. So they send their kids to the school and we welcome them. Why in Jamhour it's not the case? It's simply because in Jamhour we have the system of accepting or giving the priority to our alumni, and our alumni mainly is a Christian alumni. Probably I answered partly your question. We have the intention to develop more this kind of interaction between the Lebanese community, if you like. But we go slowly. It means it's, in order to have really people together, you have to prepare the ground. And some people, maybe the majority of Lebanese, are still very fanatic. It means in the public discourse they would say, oh, there is no problem, we live together. But in fact, when you go in detail, when you really see what's going on, they are still very fanatic. And when I'm saying fanatic, it means they are afraid, and in some way they lack the intellectual openness. And this is a project of a long run. We have to work on it, and not only Jamhour, I think all the schools in Lebanon. Here, we go back to what you were saying. We have a great responsibility toward our country to really foster and to educate people to this openness and to go beyond their fear in order to live with others and to accept others as they are.
I think the second part of the question was with regard to the teachers.
Teachers, I would say it's the same thing, because the teachers mainly come from around the school, from the area around the school. If you go to Batour, all the regions around us, the majority of the population is Christian. We have some Muslim colleagues, and we are very happy to have them, but the majority of the teachers are Christian. And when I'm saying Christian, there is no difference between Catholic, Orthodox, or Armenian, or whatever Christians may say.
Yeah, maybe one could ask if there is also an alumni tradition among your teachers, so that the son or daughter of the teacher is also trying to get a teacher at Jamhour, or is still more you get?
You mean the children of a teacher will become a teacher? Teachers, some of them, yes. It's not the majority, yes, but you know that all the children of the teachers are Jamhour alumni. It means they became part of our family, and so simply we think about them as alumni. But some of them, you know, today, thinking of being in a school to teach and to live from your teaching is really crazy, because you will not be able to, unless you are at the university and you have a salary in dollar or in euro. Today, when you work in a school, you don't live, you survive. You see what I mean? Today it's really very risky to think about a career in a school, which was not the case many years ago.
Lebanon will improve, don't worry.
I'm not worried.
Very shortly.
Yeah. So is there any more questions? I don't see so far. So yeah, so I can thank you, Charbel, once again for the talk. Wish you all the best for the future, and also for your school and your pupils and students at the school, and that the situation in Lebanon will become better, and also for you and all learning and studying at your place. And in next year we are receiving a fellow working on Jamhour in his scientific work. So Professor Charbel and me and also our colleagues are hoping that this evening was only the opening for a more deep relation between OLB and Jamhour, and that we make a Hamla to Jamhour next year. So thank you for this opening.
I mean, you are really what we say in Germany, eine Kaderschmiede, which is, you know, a training ground, a teaching ground for people who really shaped Lebanon over a long time. As you said, you gave us the list of politicians and artists and writers and so on. And this, of course, is a, you know, disproportionately a high and interesting list that no other school can sort of. So there is a book about the AUB and Arab nationalism and how AUB became kind of, you know, sort of exactly that kind of Kaderschmiede. What is a good word for Kaderschmiede? For training, teaching ground for, you know, certain politicians, certain writers, certain intellectuals. And Jamhour seems to be something like that for another certain group in earlier years. And that makes it very interesting from a scholarly perspective.
Okay. Well, we will be ready to receive your scholars or your scholar if he or she comes. The doors of the school, of the college will be open if he wants to or she wants to do some studies in Jamhour. So, and I hope our sorry.
Do you have an archive there? Do you have a school archive?
Yes, we do, of course.
Yeah, so this is. Yeah,
I brought with me a book for your institution. In this book, you will have some photos and some issues regarding our archive. It describes how Jamhour started, what we did in 1950, etc. It's very interesting, but it's in French if you read French.
No.
Maybe one day we'll translate it into German, who knows?
Yeah,
so anyway, thanks a lot. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Wish you all the best and Merry Christmas and all.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.